who's gonna, or technical cyber solutions, I'm not sure which one you like more, which is gonna, who's gonna
Just
do a
call me
talk.
Paul.
Just Paul, that's even better. Paul is gonna do a talk here on how to do CV prep and general job interview preparation to give you a good start into your Infosec journey and maybe land that junior position. And maybe you want to say a little bit about yourself, what your background is, and a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we can get started. So basically, the idea is we came together. We know a lot of juniors who struggle. They're not necessarily with the technical bits. It's just like writing CVs when they're in interviews. So the aim of this is to help you get a job, basically. Um, so just to introduce myself, so you know that I'm not just talking a load of, you know. So I've been in InfoSec recruitment since 2016. I run technical cyber solutions as their lead recruiter. So we have another couple of guys who also work with us. So that's Tim and Paul, Paul Ogden. And we cover, well, I cover pen testing. We cover in general, so DevSecOps is Paul Ogden. Tim does developers and sales reps. And we also do SOC analysts and pretty much every single cyber job you've got out there. Personally, if you're junior and you're logging on, I have placed many junior and entry level candidates. So that's people leaving university and people who maybe like career changes, the transitioning from one career to the other. They're my contact details. You will see them at the end if you need them, so don't worry about that. So the contents of what we're going to go through today, how to write a CV or a resume if you're American, some general resources for that CV. Then we'll go into job hunting. So where do we look? And what's the best places to do? Once we've done that, we'll go into interview prep. So you've got your CV, you found the job, you've got an interview. What do we do? So we're going through basic things like scouting the company, scouting the interviewer, then miscellaneous. Finally, some interview tips. And then I believe you got some questions at the end for me that you're going to reel out. So that'll be at the end. So without further ado. So I'm not going to give you like a template for CVs. There's thousands out there on the internet. And to be honest with you, I guess a lot of the people online now are from all over the world. The problem you have with me giving you a template is that every country has its own sort of gimmicks. So it might actually be detrimental for me to do that. But what I can do is give you a general idea of what needs to go onto your CV, if that makes sense. So the first one is pretty obvious, but not everyone does it, is your contact details. Even if it's just an email. But if you send a CV, whoever you send it to needs a way of contacting you back. And sometimes people hide it in their email, hide their email addresses and stuff, or they send it via work email. So replying via work email, it gets you into trouble. So put your contact details on there somewhere, right at the top, usually your name, your contact details. We don't need an address. I mean, if you just want to put your city because you want to target a specific geographic location, that's fine. We don't need your full address, so don't worry about that. But yeah, just the basics. Then this is optional. Some people put like a personal blurb to say, well, what they want to achieve, what their goals in life are. It's completely optional. One thing I would say is keep it as short as possible, and that's the same for the whole CV. You don't want to have a really, really long CV. I'd say 2 pages at most. Some countries like France, for example, you have to keep it to 1 page. So again, country specifics, but I keep it as short as possible if you can. After the personal blurb, so usually I've listed it in this way because this is what is the most important. That's your experience. Yeah, that's the key thing. Experience will trump your certifications. It will trump your education. It's what most people look for straight away. Appreciate that not many of you have any experience. That's fine. You can put that afterwards. But for those who do, put your experience first, where you've worked, some details about that, bullet points. If you want to do bullet points, that's fine. But what I would do is just make sure you've got all the information there for what you want for that job. Then education. So, if you've been to university, you've got to put that on there so we know what level you've got to. It's not hugely important in some countries. In other ones, it is. So again, country specifics, but you got to put, if you've got a master's on there, it's worth putting on. You worked hard for that. And also, don't forget your certifications. So obviously, with pen testing, we've got OSCP. There's millions of other ones out there. I'm not going to list them all. But what I would do is just put it down so that your certifications are the most relevant at the top. So if you're going for a pen test role, you've got OSCP, put that one first, and then all the other ones afterwards, because they'll be less important. If you end up having too many, which does happen, then take off the least important ones, the really, really basic ones. Certification. So put the most important ones on there. If you end up with a page full of certs, take some of the least useful ones off, the ones that aren't important. So that's basically your CV. That's how you want it to be laid out, basically. And obviously what I'd recommend you all do, if you're in like Italy or Germany or UK or America, go online and see local templates. Don't just click on the first template you see. Click on one that's more specific to your region or country, because that will be better for you in a nutshell. Cool. So some extra resources to have on there. So obviously we're looking at technical people. All of you guys are in Infosec. So put any tech profiles you've got on there. If you've got a Hack the Box profile or a GitHub is really, really useful if you've got a good professional looking one. Where you'd put them, I'd put them with your contact details, these sorts of profiles, because they're another way of contacting you as well. Another sort of snippet is to use keywords often. Now, there's a reason for this. A lot of companies these days are using sort of AI to go through your CV and pick out keywords. If you don't have them in there, they will bin your CV. So use them often. There is a little cheat you can do, which works against these machines, and that's basically put a load of keywords, list them out, put them in really small fonts, and then change the color of the font to the background of your CV. So if it's white, put it as white font. The machine will pick it up, but humans won't, so it won't look naff on your CV. It's a way of cheating the machine, but definitely use keywords often. And keywords, we're talking about what tools you're using, if you're a coder, what languages you've used, those sorts of things. Again, keep it as short as possible. I mentioned that before, but with relevant details being prominent. So if you have been a pen tester, and you want to go for a pen test role, make sure we can see it. Don't have it hidden. People do sometimes do that, or they don't realize, but make sure it's prominent. Also, avoid auto-judging your own skills. So I don't know if you're guilty of this, but sometimes I see like a table with skills listed, and it will have it like C#, and it'll have good, Python, medium. So you're auto-judging your own skills. I'd avoid doing that as much as possible, and just put you can code in C#, you can code in Python. Auto judging can backfire quite badly, so just don't do it. Avoid when you're formatting your CV. So avoid using tables, and that again goes back to using keywords. With these machines scanning your CV, if you're using a table, sometimes it will just scan that one table for your whole CV, so it'll miss everything else. So if you put your name, for example, and contact details in a table, that's all it will read on your CV. So your CV will get rejected straight away. So just don't do it. And finally, so when you're sending your CV, a lot of recruiters will ask you to send it in Word. I don't mind because PDF is actually more secure. It's less likely to have malware basically in it. So, but a lot of recruiters will ask you to send it in Word. So just do that. But remember, if you're sending it in a PDF, don't send it as a picture. Send it as like a document. Because if you send it as a picture, again, those scanning tools will not pick up the words. There's something else to remember. That's just basic resources for your CV. Hopefully with that, you've got enough to write a decent one. And again, just use the templates for your local region. Now, when we're going job hunting, moving on to the next stage, you've got a CV written, you want to go and find a job. What I would do, and probably do this before you even write your CV, to be honest, is work out what you want and what you need. There's two things here with job hunting. Now, what you want, so that could be a SOC analyst role. That's what you want. What you need is things like, obviously, how much you want to get paid. That's quite a big one. Realistically, of course, don't aim for 100K if you've only got no experience. The other need would be geography. So where are you based? And is it realistic that you can relocate or not? Now, if it's not, then you need to focus on your geographic region. So that's wants and needs. You need to work them out. That's down to you as an individual. So we can't do it for you. But once you have worked out, then you can start applying for those jobs in that area. When you do get some jobs, so say you've sent your CV to a recruiter, and they've got you a job back. So I'd always ask the name of the company that you're going forward if you're going to use a recruiter. So there's plenty of reasons why. One, you can do your own sort of research on the company, which is important. You're in Infosec, so you should be able to do your own research on Google. And another reason is several companies will use multiple recruiters to find people for them with different companies. So if you don't know who you're being sent towards, you might end up being sent to the same place twice or more. And that can be bad. It makes you look really desperate. So just avoid that at all costs, basically. You find out where you're going to. Get as much information as possible from whoever you're dealing with, the HR, the recruiter, or the line manager. If there's a JD or job description, try and get it. Yep. Sorry, did it disconnect? Because I'm being pinged again. So yeah, just going back to it. So get as much information as you can from whoever you're dealing with, the HR, the line manager, the recruiter. Try and get a job description. You might not get everything, but you want the minimum stuff. You want see if you can get paid. They don't always say so in certain places, but see if you can get the pay scale. The tools they're using, the general job you're going for, because sometimes it might be advertised as, say, a pen tester, but reality is you're vulnerability scanning, and that's not fun. So try and get a general gist of what it is you're going for. And finally, don't be peer pressured into accepting a role. So yeah, if you are going via a friend, for example, but you've got another offer from another firm that's actually better for you, don't be peer pressured. Your friend will get that you prefer working for that other firm if that person is a friend. So don't be peer pressured into going to another firm. Do what's right for you every time. I think that's the key takeaway, really. So let's go into interviews. So you've sent your CV to a job you like. They've come back and said, we'd like to interview you, please. So what I would do before you do the interview is look at the company. And you're doing all sorts of things online. So main one is, where are they located if they have an office? Because chances are at some point, even if you're a remote worker, you've got to go into the office. Might be just for the Christmas corporate do that they might be doing, but it's worth knowing where they're based and working out how to get there. look at the company website. Now, most companies these days, they'll have a careers page and they will say why it's good to work for them. They'll have the benefits listed. They'll have all the perks on there. So it's always worth looking at the company website. Equally, you can sometimes see the bosses there. They'll have an about page with the management team. You can go and look at them, see what they're about, see if you recognize anyone. It's always worth checking out the company website. Equally, the company LinkedIn page, and if they have a Twitter page, any sort of social media, you can see what they're putting out there. It sometimes gives you an idea of the type of company as well. So if they're putting out a lot of information about IT support, then it's likely that most of what they do is in IT support, in a nutshell. Or in market, if it's a lot of marketing for marketeers, then it's likely that the company's a marketing firm. But it's always worth checking out so you've got an idea of the industry you're getting into. Also, whilst you're on the LinkedIn, so if you go on a company's page on LinkedIn, it will tell you if you've got connections there. So you can always just see if you have any and ask them what it's like working there. Or maybe they can give you a bit of a helping hand when you're going for the interview. They can recommend you, but it's always worth seeing who works there, simply because they can give you a bit of inside information. And the final bit is to check Glassdoor ratings. So Glassdoor, I don't know if you guys know it, is a website where they basically have the company and you can put a review if you work there. And you can give them a certain amount of stars, as 5 stars is the max, but you can also leave a review. Now, one thing I'd say with Glassdoor ratings, some of them you'll have some that are working there and they will sum up the company brilliantly because they're still working there and they don't want to get fired. There's also the ones who have left the company and maybe they didn't leave under good terms and their revenge would be to write a terrible Glassdoor rating. So just bear it in mind when you're looking at these things. But it's always worth checking out nevertheless to see what people have said. So that's the company. Now, when you get an interview, I'd say 90% of cases, you will know who the interviewer is. So if you don't know, I'd always ask. It's always worth asking who's interviewing you. And this is why. So you're scouting the interviewer, find them on LinkedIn again or Twitter, find out any personal pages they've got about that. Maybe not so much their Facebook, that's a bit too stalky, but at least find out their professional pages, see what stuff they've been putting out, what articles they've been publishing, have a read of them. Have they done any talks? So have they got anything on YouTube or Twitter, or have they been to Black Hat and been recorded on something? The reason you want to ask that is quite simple. If you look at their talk, you can see maybe formulate some questions. And when you go to interview, you can say to them, oh, I saw you talking about this subject. I'm actually quite interested in it. Could you tell me a little bit more? And for one, it will mean less time for them to ask you tricky questions. And two, you're sort of subtly stroking their ego because you're making it look like they're much better than maybe they are. So it gives you a lot more sort of power in the interview. You're actually taking the power away from the interviewer then and putting it back into your own hands. It's always worth investigating the interviewer. Also, do you know anyone who's interviewed with them before? Maybe they can give you some insight into what they're like, sort of questions they might ask. Are they going to be more technical? Are they going to be more soft questions? It's always worth asking. And if you're using a recruiter, what do they know about the interviewer? So from my perspective, many of my clients, I've had interviews with them previously. So I can tell you a little bit about what they're like, personality-wise, what sort of setting it will be like. Are they quite formal? Are they quite relaxed? I can tell you all of that. And it's always worth asking a recruiter, if you're using one, what are they like and what do they know about the interviewer? And do they get on well with them? Are they going through HR because they're trying to avoid the interviewer? It's always worth asking. So you can get an idea of the personality of that person you're talking to. And this is the last bit, I believe. So this is like the miscellaneous interview prep. So a lot of the time, especially right now with COVID, there's not so many face-to-face meetings going on. It's all been done via the phone or via Zoom. So if you're doing a phone call, for example, I recommend not just picking up and saying hello. A lot of countries do that. I know the UK and the USA is quite common. What I recommend you say though when you pick up the phone is introduce your name. So hello, whatever your name is speaking. It makes you sound a lot more professional. It also sets them at ease a little bit because they've never phoned you before, especially technical people. They do get a bit paranoid on the phone. They know they've got the right number, which instantly puts them at ease. So it's always worth saying your name when you pick up the phone. If you are doing a face-to-face, I know that's not common so much anymore, but still, if you have to do them, plan the journey and arrive early. I'd say try and arrive at least 15 minutes early. You don't have to go into the building that you're interviewing in, but what I would do is have a look around the area because, let's say you get the job and you forget your lunch one day. Well, if you've had a look around the area, you know where to go and get lunch or you know where to go and get coffee. So it's always worth investigating the surrounding area of where you're working. So it's good to arrive early. Never arrive late unless you have a really good excuse. And if you do arrive late, phone in and tell them you're going to be late. But just generally try and avoid it. Ask for the dress code as well before the interview. Now, this could work on Zoom as well as face-to-face. Never just assume it's smart. There are, especially in tech firms, there's a lot of companies which prefer you dress down. So always ask the dress code. It doesn't hurt. It shows you're being inquisitive, and you're trying to gauge what it's like working there. So it's worth asking. If it is your first time interviewing as well, see if you've got a friend, a peer who can do some role plays with you. It's worth doing to build up your confidence. They might be able to throw you some curveball questions and see how you react to things. So put you on the spot a bit. It's worth doing simply to build up your confidence. So don't knock it. Don't leave it till last minute to cancel. I think that's fairly obvious, but it does damage your reputation if you've had an interview booked for a week and you phone 5 minutes before to say you can't make it. Try and give them a little bit more time. Maybe they can rebook, maybe they can reschedule. If it's not for you, though, if you decide during the time that actually I don't want to interview with this firm, then just be honest and tell us. It's not a. It's better doing that than not showing up for the interview. It's better for your reputation. It's better for, and the interviewer has taken time out of their day, so you factor that in as well. It's just good all round if you're honest with people. So be honest, and yeah, that's what I have to say really. So do you have questions?
I think that was a really good talk. I learned a few things which I should have used a few months ago, but there's always the next time. So maybe we can see what kind of questions we get now. My first one would be in the interview. For example, when you have a company that tries to pressure you already in the interview to leave a rating for the interviewing process, how do you think you would go about that?
I've never come across that, to be honest.
I actually came across it twice now. That's why, and before never. So I was very surprised by that.
It's a weird one. It depends really if you want to get the job or not, I suppose.
Just kiss up or.
Yeah, I mean it's a funny one. I've never come across that. I've never had anyone ask me that. I've never had it in my experience, and I've had a few interviews. I've never had, "Will you rate our interview, please?" It's maybe they do it in Germany. I don't know.
It was new to me, but certainly was a bit surprised by that. We got one question here, I think, from Sai Krishna, I think. I hope I didn't butcher it completely. Hey, I live in India and here we have only blue team jobs mostly, but I'm interested in red teaming. Even though we do certs like OCP and PTP, still people work in blue team. Any suggestions for how to find a remote pen tester job as a fresher?
As a fresher, Yeah, I mean, remote jobs are incredibly hard to come by anyway, and most of the time, if you're flip it on its head from an employer's perspective. If you're going to employ someone remotely, you want to know that they can do the job, and you want to be able to just fire and forget basically, because they're not in the office, you can't see what they're doing. So you're going to want to hire someone who's got the experience more than the certifications in this case. So as a fresher, I mean, the best thing you could do really from your perspective in India, I'd say, is to join a big firm with outlets in different countries, not just a small boutique, but like say Tata Consulting, for example, in India. They will have opportunities elsewhere, and you can sort of move over, and they'll sponsor visas for you. That's the only real way you can get out of that trap. In regards to freshers and remote jobs, I've never seen one. So it's and especially right now with COVID, I mean, fresher jobs have been obliterated as it is. So there's not many out there, and you just can't get a remote job.
Yeah, I actually looked the last 3 months or so for that type of position as well, and it's tough at the moment. This is just not the best time to be picky about a job necessarily. Maybe in 2 years or so, when the economy is back up. Let's check out the next question. How useful is the OCP, or are there any other beginner certs which you would recommend? Also, what are you employed as?
What am I employed as? The lead
Yes.
recruiter.
Lead recruiter. Yeah. Yes.
So in terms of other certs, I mean, it depends where you are. So OSCP is pretty much the global one. If you're in America and want to work for the Department of Defense, you've got to do CEH. It's the only time CEH is useful. If you don't want to do that, don't bother doing it. If you're in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and Singapore, you want to get the CREST CRT. They're in demand in those countries. But if you're not in any of those 5 countries, you don't want to work for American DoD, OSCP is the best one to go for. That's the one that's in demand. There are other certs, there's millions of other certs which might be a bit better at entry level, but that's the one that will get you a job.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like OSCP is such a good standard certification, and you also learn a lot in it. So even from another standpoint, if just from a learning standpoint, it's really good. And not that it will help you a lot with finding like an initial interview necessarily, but for example, attacking and defending AD might be really good if you land a few interviews, because that will prepare you well for a lot of pen test positions if you aren't going the AppSec route. All right, the next question. How important do you consider soft skills? I guess this is, what do you have to say to that?
It depends on the role you're going for. So if you're going for a consultant role, then soft skills are as important as your technical skills. Yeah, if you're going to be in a position where you're in front of clients, you need to be able to talk to them. You need to be able to have a conversation and talk about the weather or whatever it is you want to talk about. But soft skills are important in that regards, definitely. If you're going for a position where you're not dealing with clients, you're in a back office somewhere, it's not so important. It's only really important within the team itself, within the internal team. And then it's just a case of how antisocial do you want to be. Do you want to go out with your team for drinks after work or not? That's entirely up to you. Soft skills are something that's hard to learn. Technical skills you can learn it, but soft skills, it's a bit different because you've actually got to get out there. You've got to put yourself out there. So it's a different way of learning, I guess. But they are equally as important, so do not neglect them.
All right, I think that's a fair answer. We have one more here. What to look for in an intern position?
And it depends what they want to do in the intern position.
Yeah, to be fair, that's true. I guess it's more about I guess the question is really here, what do you mean by that? Maybe you can clarify that as love Annie or whatever, however you spell that name. Okay, let's see. Let's have the next one here. How many years of experience does one need to have to move from entry level to professional? I would say that's also a bit hard, since
It depends on the
yeah, it depends on
company,
the
really. I've seen
person
guys
as well.
move from after 6 months. This is internal sort of titling, if you like, and pay scales. You know, they'll have you at entry level at 0 months, and then after 6 months in the game, they might say, "Oh, you're mid level." Generally, from what I can see from consultancies, at least, the sort of bar is set when you become billable. So that's when you're moving from just doing your trading all the time to going to client site on your own and doing your pen tests on your own. If you're in a SOC, it's different. So it's when you move to the second line, is when you're sort of mid range as opposed to the first line. It just depends on the job, really, and it depends on the company. I'd say just take a look at your pay, really, and see where you are at that. If you're still getting paid the same as an entry level and you've been working for 1 or 2 years, then you need to change jobs because they're not promoting you, and you would be mid level by then.
Yeah, and on that point as well, if you stick in a job for too long, they don't want to give you a better position, and you will be stuck there. You might also have issues later on when you leave a company because you won't have like any recent experience at other companies, and they might not give you like a best rating afterwards. It's just something to think about.
I mean, it depends. You don't want to job hop either.
Yeah,
So
true.
I'd say you need to, your first job, if you can, try and stick out a year at least. And then your second job, try and do 2 or 3 years. After that, it's less important, but try not to job hop. That's it will turn employers off if you're jumping around.
Yeah, I was thinking about that guy who works like 8 years for the same company and he hated it after 2. And
Yeah, that's bad.
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
put it like this: if you spend more time at work than you do with friends and family, so why would you be miserable in that job? You know,
Yeah.
if he hated after 2, he was there for 8 years, so 6 years of his life he was miserable. Change jobs. You know, what are you doing? You don't owe a company loyalty who is making you miserable. You know, if they're making you happy, great, stay there. But if they're not, then change jobs. Simple.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay, we got an interesting one from Screw Loose. Is it a good idea to address yourself in the third person or first person in your CV or in the About section on LinkedIn? How do you feel about that?
Well, if you're writing it in English, because obviously languages and stuff, it's different. I mean, I don't really pay attention to that. I'd say first person might be better because you're trying to put it across that it's you, rather than third person where it's like, oh, Jim is great at cyber. I mean,
Yeah,
Jim could be
that's
a
so
friend.
pretentious.
Yeah, it sounds a bit odd. So I'd say first person. But obviously, if you're writing a CV in a different language, it might be completely different. That's just the English part of it.
Let's see. We got also a question about where you would put stuff like CTF and hands-on experience in the CV, but I think you went over that, right? But
Yeah, I'll go back to it. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I put it after probably experience. So you put your experience in your jobs, and then you do your CTFs. That's where I put it. Around about here.
all right.
Jobs first. Jobs are more important than CTFs.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Justin D. Hi, good talk. I got a master's in computer science. Just wondering if HR recruiter would be convinced if it would be suffice for any security job. I'm currently thinking getting another master's in cybersecurity. If one master's in computer science is okay, then I just gonna focus on the certs. I think one master's in
Yeah, one's enough. I
computer
mean,
science is definitely
Again,
suffice?
it depends on the country. Some countries will ask you have a degree. Others don't care. Like the best thing for him to do is to contact a recruiter in his country and ask them, what should they do? I mean, if you're in the UK, for example, we don't really care so much about degrees. It's like a nice to have, but we would look at certs. America, you do tend to need a college degree, although I think that's slowly changing from what I've seen. But in general, you do still need that college degree. Other countries, it's different. It just depends on where you are.
Yeah. We got a question about which companies would you suggest for internship in Scotland, but I am not sure if you know a lot of Scottish companies.
I do know Scottish companies, but I'm just trying to think the ones that do internships because a lot of them have stopped doing them. I mean, you can try. There's Commerson in Edinburgh. So that's spelt Charlie Oscar Mike India Sierra Sierra Uniform Mike. I think that's the spelling. They're in Edinburgh. They're a fairly good firm to check out. I don't know if they do internships, so this is all off the top of my head, basically. You can try some of the big four. They sometimes offer internships in Scotland. Who else would be in Scotland? I mean, Sapphire are based in Glasgow, but again, I don't know if they do internships. Context have an office in Edinburgh, but their internships are in London. DM me afterwards.
Yeah, okay, I think that's
Could
fair.
take some fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we got another question about India, but I'm not sure if you necessarily know much about the localities there and which
No,
kind of
I don't.
yeah.
I know the capital. That's about it, and I just know what it's called.
Yeah. Okay, I think all the direct questions about a specific location, guys, are probably not the best. You might want to inform yourself and then seek
Unless
out
it's UK
recruiters.
or US or Europe,
Yeah.
because that's places I've dealt with. I can't really help you, to be honest.
We got a question here. Anything in Newcastle? Not sure if that's too specific as well.
There is, I know a firm in Newcastle. What are they called? DM me afterwards. I do know a company in Newcastle.
Yeah, I think this unless you guys
There's
have
a few.
more general questions, we would close it down here. But
Yeah.
I think these were some really cool points you made, and maybe you can send me the slides later on, and I will keep them for later. And we will put this talk on YouTube as well, probably on the Infosec YouTube channel. But I will push out an announcement. If you guys want to find a community, you can look down here in the channel. There's also a link to a Discord. You can join that. There are also the links to Technical Cyber Solutions Twitter, the page, and the LinkedIn. You should definitely check that out, and maybe you guys can, work something out, and you can find a beneficial relationship to each other. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Maybe we got one last question here. Let's see. One last, what after OCP, OSVE, or OSCE? I would say that depends what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And what country you're in again,
yeah,
because you can
that's
do
true.
Crest. Goes down a different path. So
OSCE is more binary based. OSVE, well, I think OSVE is probably the standard answer for more people. But then again, if you want to do cool stuff with binary exploitation and want to do OSCE at some point, OSCE is kind of necessary. If I had the chance to do one of the two, I would probably do OSCE just because I like it more, like the binary exploitation thing. All right, I think that's it. Thanks for your time, and thanks for watching, guys.
thank you.